In the depths of southern Madagascar lies a tradition known to few, yet difficult for many to believe. It's a practice that has passed down from generation to generation, shaping the lives of young women up to the present day. But we won't get ahead of ourselves. Stay with us to uncover what takes place in this small, unusual region of the world. Madagascar is not just an island, it's a world of its own. Located off the southeastern coast of Africa, it's famous for its unique plants and animals that can't be found anywhere else on the planet. But behind this natural beauty lies a much harsher reality, especially in the southern part of the country, where life is extremely challenging and progress seems frozen in time. The south of Madagascar is one of the most arid and impoverished areas on the island. Here, living conditions are harsh. Scarcity of water, frequent droughts, and extreme poverty have left many communities entirely isolated from the rest of the world. Roads are practically non-existent. Access to basic services like education and healthcare is minimal, and most people live in dire conditions. These challenging circumstances have led the southern communities to cling to ancient traditions in a struggle for survival. Life here is a constant battle, not just against nature but also against being forgotten. While Madagascar's major cities are gradually modernizing, the south remains bound by centuries-old practices, where customs often hold more weight than personal desires. Yet the resilience of these people speaks volumes. They live off the land in small villages where everyone knows each other, and each person plays a role in the community. However, this isolation has kept alive traditions that, to many, would be unthinkable, especially the one we're discussing today. As we've mentioned, agriculture is the backbone of the local economy. Here, families cultivate small plots of corn, rice, and cassava. With limited rainfall and scarce resources, these communities have learned to make use of every grain, every drop of water, and every ray of sunlight. Cattle farming is also crucial. Livestock is both a symbol of status and, in many cases, the only source of income for families. Their society is deeply connected to ancestral rituals and practices that have endured for centuries and serve as the foundation of their lives. Among these traditions, one stands out for its controversial nature from our perspective, raising more questions than answers. Here, young women are at the center of an ancient custom that is still alive today, shrouded in mystery and profoundly impacting the lives of these young women. In these isolated communities, young women are given to much older men, often as part of family agreements. For most of us, this might seem incomprehensible, but soon you'll understand the reasoning behind it and how these controversial rituals take place. These young women, often barely teenagers, are offered as wives to men who have already lived most of their lives. It's an act that, from our perspective, might seem unfair. Yet here, it's fully normalized. Families believe this practice ensures the well-being and protection of the young women, while strengthening ties between families. Marriage here isn't always a declaration of love. It's also an economic exchange that benefits both families. The older man is viewed as a protector and provider, and these unions are seen as a way to ensure that young women will be under the care of someone experienced. For the young women, however, the situation is far more complex. In many cases, they have no choice. Tradition dictates their destiny from a young age, and what their families expect from them is a burden they must carry. Although some accept this reality, others might dream of a different life, one where they have a say in their own future. This tradition not only highlights the importance of these older men, but also reflects the place of these women within this social structure. They are seen as the pillars of the family, yet their decisions are bound by the need to uphold these ancient norms. I know what I've just shared may sound shocking, so I'd like to know, what do you think? Now let's explore how these rituals unfold and what the first meeting between these young women and the older men is like. Let's go. This ritual is nothing like the marriages we know. It's a much simpler act, yet for them, it's filled with meaning. It starts with the families, who typically make the arrangement informally. The young woman's parents and the older man meet, usually accompanied by other community members. The exchange of goods is often central to the agreement. Livestock, food, or even land are used to seal the deal. All of this takes place with the young woman present, who often has no choice but to accept what has been decided for her. It's hard to imagine what might go through these girls' minds in those moments. Perhaps fear and uncertainty mixed with the pressure to meet their family's expectations. For the man, it's a confirmation of his status and his role as a protector and provider, along with the privilege of having a young, beautiful wife. The second meeting. Once the family arrangement is sealed, the moment of truth arrives. Unlike the first, this encounter is more intimate, as the man and the young woman are alone for the first time. This is when reality sets in for both sides, and it usually takes place in the man's home. For the young woman, the change is drastic, leaving her family home for an unfamiliar household with a much older man. The man, who now has every right over her, expects her to fulfill her part. For her, whether she likes it or not, there is no option. What happens from this point defines the future of a relationship that was not chosen out of love, but dictated by ancestral duty. For these young women, fulfilling their destiny is simply part of life, something they've observed from a young age and accept as their fate. The idea of rebelling or choosing another path isn't something that crosses their minds. For some, the concept of choice doesn't even exist. They have been raised to take on this role, and although it may seem unjust from our viewpoint, here it's entirely normal. Yet not all young women see their situation in the same way. Some begin to question what lies ahead, perhaps because modern ideas are slowly reaching their lives, or because of the stories of those who have found a different path. Imagine living between the desire to honor your family and the longing to have control over your own future. How would you feel? An uncertain future. The future of these communities is uncertain, but the question is clear. Are they destined to change over time? As globalization and ideas of equality and human rights spread, local customs like this one face an undeniable challenge. However, in a region where life is harsh and resources are scarce, change is not always easy or welcome. Progress and modernization are slowly making their way to even the most isolated corners of Madagascar. International organizations and NGOs fighting for women's rights have begun to spark debates about these customs' role. Increasingly, people question whether these practices, which bind young women to a destiny not of their own choosing, have a place in today's world. What is clear is that change doesn't happen overnight. For many in these communities, tradition is more than just a custom. It's the foundation of their survival. Families rely on these agreements to ensure economic stability, and breaking away from this could endanger what they have preserved for centuries. Education and access to new opportunities are still limited, and without these resources, changing these customs becomes even more challenging. Meanwhile, the older men, who have grown up believing their status guarantees these rights, may resist any attempts to alter the established norms. It's evident that modernization is knocking on the door, but in remote places like southern Madagascar, change will be a slow and uncertain process. Meanwhile, these young women will continue to live in a world where tradition outweighs their own desires, leaving the question open: will they ever see a different future than the one their ancestors laid out for them? The question is clear. How do we respect a people's customs without sacrificing the rights of those who are beginning to see beyond them? There is no simple solution, but it's important to bring this topic to light. Now it's your turn. What do you think of this tradition? Do you believe it's part of their culture and should be respected? Or is it time for a change? I'd love to hear your opinion, so leave your comment below. Don't forget to share this video and subscribe to keep discovering intriguing stories like this one. See you next time.